So welcome everybody. It's not a hangout on air today. We had to go to a plan B, a technology plan B, but welcome everybody to this interview, to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today I'm speaking with Per Frykman. Did I say your name right? I didn't even ask before we started.
Almost Per Frykman.
Okay, Per Frykman.
Yes.
I've got the American accent. I can't lose it. But welcome, Per. You are a reputation advisor, which I'm excited to talk to you about that because I don't know much about it. And the thing that caught my eye when asking to interview you is that you've taken my work holiday concept to a whole new level. And I want to dive into that with you and then also talk about your way of remote working with your colleagues. So let's get started, and we'll start with an interview. Give us an introduction about who you are and what your world looks like.
Well, I have a very mixed background, actually. I used to be a dentist about 25 years ago, but that was the wrong choice. So I quit that and jumped into marketing. And been a mental trainer for alpine skiers and the Swedish national speed skating team for the Olympics in Nagano. So it's way back. But then I started a company helping people finding the next step in their professional lives. And the last 10 years, as you said, I've been working as a reputation advisor with analyzing, expanding and promoting your most valuable asset and the highest valued possession that you have, your reputation, which is at the same time the most unknown possession. So it's which is strange because reputation is the cornerstone of your economy and actually the cornerstone of the collaboration economy, together with the expectations that this creates and the trust that it builds. And a couple of years ago I saw an interview on television with Richard Branson, and he talked about his reputation, saying that this is all he got. And I always find it very strange that everyone that we ask agree upon the huge value of the reputation, yet nobody knows what it looks like or the opportunities that it creates. So in a wider perspective, what I'm working with is actually the things that your clients or your employer are buying. It's your potential and the expectation that goes hand in hand with it. And I think that the reason that so many people don't use their full potential is that they are not aware of it. And that's what we are helping people to be aware of their potential and to use it in the right way. So up till now we have worked with around 900 people individuals in 5 different countries and built this method, which is actually unique because we haven't found anyone anywhere who would do it in this way. So we are a network company representing, as you said, in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and in the UK. And I have almost the last 15 years worked in this way, this remote way.
Okay.
And, connecting with my clients, with different partners around the world.
So it's interesting that you started as a dentist. So that's something totally different than what you're doing now.
Yes, and it was the wrong decision to become a dentist. So I used to say I was the worst dentist in Sweden.
I can't imagine that's true.
So I had to quit, but that is more than 25 years ago. So
Sure. But it's an interesting concept. I work with it a lot because of Happy Melly. You know, we encourage people to quit their jobs if they're not happy. And I started as a hydrologist, which was totally the wrong thing for me. I mean, completely, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, but how did you know? how did you know it was time to quit? Because I assume there's a lot of work that goes into becoming a dentist, so it's not an easy decision, I think.
No, it's not an easy decision, but when you really enjoy the patient who doesn't show up,
right.
then you're in the wrong job. And I mean, no passion, no ambition. And the interesting thing is that when I have seminars, I used to warn people and say that if you look at me with the traditional concept of my skills, I am totally unskilled doing what I've been doing the last 20 years, because formally I'm a dentist. In my CV I'm a dentist, but after that I'm just been going after my passion and my ambition instead.
And learning on the way.
Yes.
Interesting. So did you immediately go to working remotely after quitting being a dentist in the well, you had alpine training. That's also something very unusual. You're an alpine trainer, so.
Yes, and after dentistry I went into marketing for a couple of years, but after that I've been working remotely all the time.
And why? What was the decision that made you start working remotely? Because that's a pretty long time to be doing it. You're definitely one of the early adopters in that sense.
Yes, but I live up in north of Sweden, and I work all over Sweden, so where should I put the office? And so it was a practical issue from the start that I don't know where my next assignment comes from. And then I discovered that I really enjoy working in this remote way. It's to me it's perfect. So it can take me to the places where I enjoy to be, and work in creative places. Like I just returned from Italy and Sicily, and been working down there for 10 days and focusing on my work and not just being in Italy.
Right, and so when you say you get this big smile when you say, like, I love this way of working, so what is it that you love? Obviously, I read in your profile that you are a big fan of Italian cooking and wines and Italy. It sounds like you're a big fan of Italy and the Mediterranean. Is that the main reason? Is it the freedom that it allows you, or what is it that you love so much?
Well, it's the freedom, and it's the feeling of being close to my clients wherever I am, because I started this working with Skype and worked in different countries, and worked in Brazil, in India, and everywhere I work I feel that I'm close to my clients due to sitting on Skype. I'm used to working on Skype, and of course I love meeting people up front, but Skype has become the very important tool to me.
Right, and it's funny that you say that you like that you're close to your clients wherever you are, because most people feel distant. I mean, it's remote is in the name, remote working. And yes, you're having the opposite experience, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, I feel close to you now. We are sitting just opposite one another.
Exactly.
And this meeting couldn't have happened in any other way. Of course, I could go down to you, but here we are.
Right.
So it's, and I think people are getting used to this way of working now, and this way that my clients have never objected to when I say, let's meet on Skype. And they say, yes, let's do that.
Interesting. So people are, it's the time spent traveling for people, I think, is considerable. I mean, for you and I to have a conversation, I would either have to fly to remote Sweden, or you would have to come to the Netherlands, which could be a full day of traveling if you count everything. And that's just for a meeting.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and actually when I'm in Italy, I normally don't tell my clients I'm working from Italy, because I'm just sitting in another office, so to speak.
Right. It simply doesn't matter where you are.
Doesn't matter at all. So I normally don't tell the people where I am.
And So we've talked about that you like the freedom and that you're close to your clients wherever you are. It's we've saved on travel costs and time and energy, but what is it that you find challenging about how you work?
Well, it's actually a couple of things I mean, working remotely or collaborating with people in different countries actually depend on those three key factors that I talked about: my reputation and what can they expect from me, and the trust that I'm building all the time. Because without those three key factors, I couldn't collaborate with my clients in this way or with different companies. So I think that the greatest challenge for people working in this new way is knowing those three key factors, work with them. Because if people know my reputation, if people know what they can expect from me, if people trust me, then I can connect with people in many parts of the world. So this is a great challenge.
Indeed. I think trust comes up as the number one issue in remote working in every conversation that I have.
Definitely, but people don't actually know how to build trust.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that it's about knowing your reputation and living up to those expectations that this creates. That's the way to build trust in a great way.
In a genuine way, it sounds like.
That's a better word. Yes.
And oh, sorry.
Yeah. And another challenge that I noticed is that I have to overcome the customer expectations of having an office, having an office address, because not having an office, sometimes you can be perceived as a serious company. So
right.
That's also about building the company reputation without having an address, to be a trustworthy partner in this way with my remote office, if you should call it that.
And how does one, I know that given that this is the cornerstone of your business, I know that there's no simple answer to this question, I'll say that in advance, but how does one manage those expectations and also build our reputation? Where would one start after contacting you?
Well, the thing is that you have to start by knowing your reputation, because in that is all your perceived strengths. And I'm always surprised, because we are hired by our clients, by our employers on our strengths, but no one is actually aware of what they looks like. We are experts on our weaknesses for some strange reason.
Weird, isn't it?
Yes, and I haven't met a single person yet who got successful on their weaknesses. We get successful on our strengths, but then we have to know them. We have to expand them, just working on our strengths. And when we do that, then we are building our reputation in a good way. So it's vital for me to know my reputation, and I know the results for my 900 clients, what happens when they know their reputation, when they when they expand it and promote it in completely new ways.
Interesting. So knowing what your strengths are and really promoting those strengths, because that's sort of what you're doing anyway. It's just people aren't doing it so deliberately, maybe. And what if you have kind of a bad reputation, but you want to reform? You're on your way to reform. We're all not perfect. I, for one, am so grateful that social media did not exist during my teenage years. I'm so grateful that was not recorded. It's all hearsay. But there's a lot of people that, we've all made mistakes. How do we recover?
Well, it's actually by again focusing on your strengths, and I have a very, very good tool that I've been working with for 10 years, and that's my stop doing list. Because everyone has a to-do list, and I also have one to free my brain. But my greatest tool is my stop doing list, because there is a myth that says that winners never quit. I would say winners quit all the time, but they quit the right things at the right time. And there are three great American management gurus or marketing gurus, Tom Peters, Seth Godin, and Jim Collins, that have one thing in common. They say that the secret to success among individuals is deciding what not to do. And when you decide, I have a lot of weak spots, but then I decide to put them on my stop doing list and try to get rid of them over time. And that way I pushed into the sector where my talents, my ambition, and my passion just join forces to create great stuff. And I really enjoy that, because I try to get rid of all my weak spots and clients that I don't enjoy and circumstances that I don't want to be in.
Right.
So why be there?
Right. Given that we have a choice.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but somehow it's hard. I mean, if it were easy, we'd all be doing it. So I think,
it takes time. It takes time. It takes a decision. I want to get rid of this kind of circumstances. You decide to do it, and you have a respect for the time that it takes. It could take half a year. It could take a year. But once you make the decision, something interesting happens.
Right. Somehow the world conspires to go your way. Somehow.
Yes. And why do stuff that you don't like?
Right. Right. So now you have colleagues that you said were spread all over Scandinavia and London. And I'm curious about how you guys work together. Like, give us some concrete examples. Do you have core hours? Are you always on Skype? What are some of the tools that you use to work together?
Well, sometimes we meet, maybe once a month, but we keep contact every week we have Skype meetings, talking about the next week, talking about the clients, talking about not actually problems, but what we are doing next. And I work a lot with my main tools are my mobile, my iPad, and a small MacBook Air because they are good for traveling.
Yeah, they sure are. They're very light, aren't they?
Yes, very light, and I work a lot in cafes, and the iPad Mini is a wonderful tool because I can bring it anywhere, and nobody objects. Sometimes they object if you put up a big computer, because they know you will be sitting there for the next 4 hours.
Right.
And also I love emails. I'm aware of some people saying that emails might be dying out and will be replaced for the social media platforms like Twitter, and so I use Twitter for quick communication with my colleagues and my clients also. And Twitter is actually also my university, because I learn a lot from people on Twitter, just following them and try to contribute also.
Indeed. You're the first person that's ever said, I love email, that I know of.
I love emails, and I think it's a beautiful way of communicating, because it's like writing a letter. You have to think a little bit, and you don't send it immediately. So I actually love emails. I don't understand the people who hate emails.
Well, you don't get to choose which emails you get. That's the downside. You get everything.
That's true, but you can sort them. So it's to me it's no problem.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And we have tried also webinar tools like Mega Meeting and go to webinars, but I actually don't like them. I don't know why. Maybe they're too complicated. I really enjoy spending time on Skype, and we do that with my colleagues.
Yeah, the tools can be heavy. It can just be really heavy, I've noticed. Yeah, and there's not one tool that does everything well. So then you end up using 10 tools.
Yes, and I always try to make things simpler all the time, not to complicate them, because what we are doing is actually extremely simple. Everyone has got a reputation. Nobody knows what it looks like, and nobody works with it. But it's really, really simple. It's just knowing your reputation. And you shouldn't complicate everything, which many people do actually.
Yeah, we're sort of built for it seems. We're built for complication. Yeah, indeed. So now I'm curious about, you say you mostly work in coffee shops. Now, when I've done my work holidays, what I do is I go to a location for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, usually Switzerland. My boyfriend's a mountaineer, so we're just always going to Switzerland.
Yes.
And I have a certain setup, like I bring an external monitor that fits in my backpack, and I don't usually work in coffee shops. We usually either rent an Airbnb or, find some sort of a place to work. But what does your anywhere office look like when you travel? What do you need? Can you really do everything from the iPad mini?
Well, as long as there's a good Wi-Fi. Of course, I'm depending on the Wi-Fi. I always check that there's a good Wi-Fi, but I can give you an example because half a year ago I went to Barcelona to spend 4 or 5 days working from there, and I found this old beautiful square where I discovered a breakfast restaurant with a very good Wi-Fi, so I had breakfast there. And then I discovered a lunch restaurant in the same square, also having Wi-Fi. So I moved to the lunch restaurant at 2 o'clock, and then the dinner restaurant was on the other side of the square, also had a wonderful Wi-Fi. So I actually spent 4 days in that square, having breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow!
Same time, but of course I went down to the sea in the evenings and enjoyed life. So, but working in that way among people, listening to people, talking to people, and writing, I think it's perfect because I get so many new ideas that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. The traveling really, it changes your perspective and gets you out of your rut a little bit.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I'm never disturbed by people sitting around me. I work at the best in that way.
And do these restaurants, clearly they don't really have a problem with you being there for a couple of hours, and you've got either your mini or a laptop or the Air, something lightweight in which to do work. Have there been issues, like if you want to have a Skype call but you're in a restaurant, or do you just find the places that are appropriate?
I never had any problems actually, because I have to order 4 or 5 cups of coffee, so I keep them happy by ordering things. But I never had any problems, and it's a good way to check out that the Wi-Fi is okay. So I always locate those places where I have a good Wi-Fi, and because I'm depending on it. Or what I can do also is, of course, to get in that case a Spanish SIM card for my mobile, but so far it's been working very well. Interesting.
So restaurant hopping in as the work holiday and just getting your work done and go. Is there any particular tool that you use to check if the Wi-Fi is going to be good, or do you just open the laptop and take a few programs that are internet intensive and see? Or
actually, I do it that way because I tried some tools for the iPhone to locate the Wi-Fi, but it never worked really good. So I go in and just check, and of course ask them if I can use the Wi-Fi. I think it's important because often there's a code to get into the Wi-Fi. But a couple of years ago, that was a bigger problem. Now I think everyone gets Wi-Fi on many good restaurants.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I was going to ask the question about. Oh no, it's escaped my brain. Which question I was going to ask? It's about the work holidays. I think it's the privacy issue, or. I know what it is. When I went on these holidays, I wanted to work all day, and it was important to be sociable with the people where I was working. So I rented an Airbnb, a room in an Airbnb, and it's kind of weird if you're traveling, if you're staying in an Airbnb all day and you're working. It's kind of weird for the host. So usually I try to rent an apartment where nobody else is there. It's just my own place. But, because remote working isn't really new, but it's not that common yet. I find that people still think it's a little bit weird. So do you get any people asking you about it, or weird reactions, or maybe some of the social tips that you use? You say you make sure you buy coffee. But are there other social tips that you have for when you're working in this way?
I mean, actually no, because it's so natural for me. I met one person who put a little sign on his MacBook where it said office. So
brilliant.
It was working. So when you opened it up, you just saw the sign office, and that was it. But I think, at least in Sweden, this is becoming so common right now, working in this way, and I made last summer. I made an international virtual business trip, trying to connect with people all around the world. But at the same time, I love the Swedish summer, so I went on a old steamship that cruised between the islands of the Stockholm archipelago, and I sat there for 14 days, working and connecting with different parts of the world, and it was just perfect. A lot of work, and then this beautiful cruise in the archipelago, staying in different islands and working. And it sounds like I'm working all the time, but actually I'm not, because my work and life are so intervened, so I don't know when I'm working, and I don't know when I'm not working. And that's perfect for me, because I can choose just to close down my work for 2 or 3 days doing different stuff, or I can work intensively for many days, because I just love what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear this a lot, that we're moving from a model of work-life balance into which assumes that they can't coexist, is the assumption there. But it's work-life fusion, where the lines are just completely blurred together. And I think there's a lot of people that like the separation, but I would then argue, well, I love my job. I don't want it to be separate from my life. I don't want to go home at 5 p.m. and turn off. Like, I love thinking about, when I go on walks, I'm always thinking about the talks that I'm going to give, or the workshops. I just love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe people are sometimes they envy me sometimes, that because they have to go back to the office, they have 5 weeks holidays, and then they just discover that once a week I go down to Italy to work, because it's the same money that would pay for an office. I have tried to work in an office 2 or 3 years ago, but I got fed up after a month.
I saw that actually in the email you wrote. You said you were in an office for 1 month and it bored you to death. Tell me a little more about that. I would really like to hear about that.
Actually, after a week, I felt I was almost like in a prison. I was sitting in these 4 walls, no one was around, and so I actually went out from the office into the coffee shops and sat there working and paying for that office at the same time. So I said, well, I have to quit to let go of the office.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also went back to the office last year just as a test to see what it was like, because I haven't worked in an office for over 10 years. And I felt the same. I felt like I was in kindergarten. We all had to show up at 9 and we had to eat lunch at noon all together. And I thought, but what if I'm hungry at 10 o'clock? Sometimes I'm just starving, But no, you have to wait until noon. And I just thought, I'm a 40-year-old woman. Like, I don't want to be told when to eat lunch.
Decide for yourself. Yes.
Right, absolutely. And I think people are moving more and more to that business model, I find. What I feel is that we're all becoming a little more entrepreneurial, and that's also where the reputation management, I bet, really comes in very important here.
Yes, and mentioning reputation management, that's big, huge in the States, but that only deals with your reputation online, and I actually think that you should start this whole process offline. And build a strategy when you know your reputation. Build a strategy how to put it on online, how to put it on LinkedIn and so on. Because LinkedIn is another thing that I really, really love working with. I get 70% of my clients from LinkedIn nowadays.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's really become a good networking tool. I mean, it's a brilliant networking tool, in fact.
Definitely.
Indeed. Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I use the updates very, very much. I write a small update, I think, once a day. A great way to promote your reputation, but also a great way to sort out your ideas, because you have to, I think it's 6 lines or something that you can put in an update, so you have to keep it short, and I really enjoy that.
Interesting. So the processing of ideas, I relate to that. When I am writing speeches, I enjoy the process because I feel like I'm taking all the knowledge that I have and sort of organizing it into something that might make sense to somebody else, hopefully. Interesting. So we've talked about benefits and challenges and the tools that you use, and I really like the tools that you mentioned, because what it brings to mind to me is that it doesn't have to be a complicated, heavy-duty tool. It can just be your phone and an iPad mini and a good Wi-Fi connection.
And what I really love is also Evernote.
Oh, yes.
It's so great. I mean, it's great to just, I reach Evernote on my iPhone and my laptop and my iPad, and I can just put all my notes in one place. So when I see an interesting article, I clip it into Evernote to read it when I'm traveling or on the subway, and all my traveling tickets go into Evernote. I think my whole life has gone into Evernote.
That's how they do it. They slowly suck you in.
Yes, but that's, to me, is the perfect tool, actually.
Totally.
It's simple, and it's a beautiful new design that I like, because I think that's important. It's simple and beautiful.
Agreed. There's an art about that
yes.
that I think is also important. When something is beautiful and simple,
yes.
It took a lot to get it that way, oddly enough.
Oh yes.
So in terms of, let's move on to, I've got a next topic as personality traits, and I just like to bring this up because, with remote working we can do everything right, but if people don't like each other, then it's not going to work. And I noticed that there are certain personalities that can't do what you're doing, this work holiday travel experience. So what kind of personality traits do you think make it successful for you, or do you think that's needed? Or if you're looking for team members, what are you looking for in a team member?
Well, actually, going back to focusing on the strengths, that's what I'm really interested in. So I'm always looking on what are the strong sides, are they aware of the strong sides, and especially what can they contribute to the future, because we are so focused on our history, what we did 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and actually no one cares. If I wrote a book in 2005 where I questioned the resume, the CV for the first time, and 10 years later everyone is questioning the CV as a tool, and all the research points to the fact that it's not your experience that makes your client choose you, it's your potential for the future. What can you do for me the next year? So I always ask those people that I'm working with, what are your plans for the next year? What can you contribute to me in the next year? So I'm only interested in the future, not the past. And that's what I think people should start thinking about, instead of saying what they did 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So there's some great research from Stanford University and Harvard Business School about this, that where they only looked what makes a client, an employer choose you, and the result is very simple. It's always the potential for the future, not your experience 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And they had a great story about this. They say, imagine that you are a manager of a soccer team, and you have 50 million Swedish crowns or 5 million euros or whatever to buy a player, and you can choose between 2 players. The one player that scored 30 goals 3 years ago in the league, or the player that you expect will score 30 goals the next season? Which player do you choose? Of course, the one that you expect will score the next season. And you just have to bring that into business, that when you hire people, I don't really care what you did 3 or 4 years ago. I want to know what you can do the next year. So that's very important, to have a mind shift from history to future. And I always look at that. And the ability to build relationships online without selling is very important to me. That you should build those relationships over time. You should be curious about other people, and that's also something that's very important to me. And also, courage is something that I think it's extremely important, because you are always exploring new ways, and you shouldn't listen too much what people are saying about you when you tell me I'm going to do this and this, and people say no, that doesn't work. If they say that, I know I'm on the right track. So when people say I'm a fool, then I also know I'm on the right track when I'm exploring new ways. So that's something. Courage is something that's very important to me, and to be persistent, to keep going. And because, I've been on this exploration trip for 10 years now, exploring the area of reputation, becoming a nerd in one area. And of course, it's about being persistent.
Right, and I think that's part of the reason why it's important to love your job, because if you don't love your job, the persistence is just not going to happen. It's like if you're trying a new habit, and you don't really want it, then you won't persist in making it happen.
So that's right.
Yeah, if you had to remain a dentist, it would have been very difficult to persist through all hoping that they won't show up.
That would be a disaster.
Exactly. Same with me with watershed science, or hydrology.
When you start to feel this stagnation in your job, you've been there too long, you don't enjoy it, then it's time to quit. I think it's only a matter of getting the right tools before you need them, to be ready to take the step when you feel that something is, I'm not enjoying this anymore.
It's interesting, and clearly you're right. You're 100% right there. And what I noticed is it's scary to quit your job. I had this day job that I worked, or this office job that I worked, I was doing it as an experiment for myself, and I even had plenty of money in savings, so if I quit or something happened, it'd be no problem. But yet, I was still scared to quit. And I noticed that because I thought, this is important, because I'm telling people all over the world through Happy Melly to quit their jobs. But I think it's important to take a step back and say, it's scary. And so you really need the courage to come into that.
It's scary. It's also about security, because you often put your security in a job when you should actually put the security within yourself, having the right tools to be ready to take the step whenever needed. Because someone could just tell you you're fired,
right.
But then you should be ready. But I think it's more important to make those moves voluntarily, because you always to go for something better.
Right, the drive and the innovation and the enthusiasm. You're right, the curiosity. And I think that's one of the things that comes up for Happy Melly all the time is the experimentation, the constant trying of new things. And, Jürgen came up with the merit money system that we use. It's sort of a 360 team feedback system where everybody at the end of the month evaluates each other. And we experimented, I think, 4 to 6 months with a number of different models before we finally found something that worked for our team.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and even then it changed even after that. So yeah, I think you're right. There's that quality in people, I think you're right, is really important for remote working. And a lot of these things that we're talking about seem like it would apply not just for remote working, but in somebody's office as well. You would want these qualities in your colleagues in your office anyway.
Definitely. And but I think that sitting in an office, your creativity is going away, because I think you have to get out of the office to meet other people, because otherwise you'll be talking to the same people over and over again, and finally we stop whining with those people instead of being creative.
Right, you fall into a rut somehow. Everybody's got their routine and we stick with it. Yeah, that's certainly what happened to me. So then, oh, sorry?
And to me.
I think to many of us. Yeah, the more... Well, this is exercise. I know we're nearing the top of the hour here, so I want to be conscious of that. But in looking at the following questions, I remember I had one other thing. If you were going to do something differently, or if you had advice for other people who want to start this, what would you do differently, and what would you advise people to? How do you advise people to start?
Well, I never actually regret things, because I don't think it's taking me anywhere. But one thing is that, the one thing I would do is I would have started this much earlier in my life than I did. But I came into this reputation business by coincidence, actually. And one day 10 years ago, so it was pure coincidence. But the thing is that, and I wouldn't try so many tools. I would stick with the simple ones. And actually one thing that, one thing more that I would earlier have strived for this simplicity much earlier, and question all the myths that has become truth. I love the Dakota Indian saying that if you're sitting on a dead horse, the best strategy is to dismount. And I think there are many dead horses out there right now. And the thing that I can advise people is one thing is that many career coaches, they tell you that you first have to decide what you want to do, and then go after it, and then act. And I actually never see that worked, because I think you have to do it in the other way around. Act first, and you will discover what you want. I think that's a more effective way of working, because I don't think you can sit down and discover what you want. You can discover probably what you are suited for doing, but not what you want within. But if you start by acting, start meeting people, start new ways of looking at things, read new newspapers, you will discover, that's really, really interesting, I want to do that. And you just stumble into it, like I stumbled into this area of reputation. And that's I think a very good way of trying. And as someone said, Steve Jobs had a wonderful speech at, was it Berkeley University, where he said to the students, go find your passion. Well, Steve Jobs didn't do that. He didn't act that way. He did a different way. He got into a small area that interested him, that he knew could add value, and after a while he found his passion there. And so I never give people the advice to find your passion, because it's not that simple. It's simple to say, but it's not that simple to do it. So I think to go into a small area, be really, really good in that area, and suddenly you just find your passion there.
It's interesting. I think you're absolutely right. And in fact, I was thinking yesterday as I was setting up all these things for this podcast, it's all a new thing. I was thinking, wow, what an interesting journey it's been. And for me, it's just been the act. I kind of think of it as like chipping at an ice block. You're just constantly chipping away, and you're constantly seeing